Okay, fine. So now the recording has been started. So let's start with the unit number two, which talks about the tax deduction and collection at source. So to avoid the cases of tax evasions, the income tax department has made the provisions to collect the tax at the source on an accrual of income. The cases included in the schemes are generally those where the income can be computed at the time of accrual of an income. Under this scheme, the person responsible for making the payment of income covered by the schemes are responsible to deduct the tax at source and deposit the same to the government's treasury within the stipulated time. The receipt of incomes, though he, she, or it gets only the net amount after the deduction of tax at source, is liable to tax on the gross amount, and the amount deducted at source is adjusted against his, her, or its final tax liability. The details of the schemes of this deduction and collection at source are briefly discussed in this chapter. That what is the background is given over here. So what is important is you can underline if you have material in your hands, you can underline the TDS schemes actually talks about the tax of income on an accrual of income. Whenever the income accrues, the same moment of time, let the tax should be deducted and let that tax reach to the government. So, and the most important is person responsible for making the payment. I underlined it. This, if you have material in your hands, person responsible for making the payments are responsible to deduct the tax at source, and not only deducting the tax at source but also deposit the same to the government treasury within a stipulated time. So underline the stipulated time. It implies that the TDS provisions are applicable to the person who is making the payment and for which that particular person is either claiming the deductions or not claiming the deduction. That is irrelevant. But in most of the cases, the person who is making the payment, it is an expense for that person, and generally that particular person is recording that particular expense in their books of accounts, which is allowed as a deduction under the Income Tax Act. So he is making the payment to third another persons. For another person it is an income. So here the person who is making the payment is liable or responsible for deduction of tax if the TDS provisions are satisfied or the condition attached to the tax deduction is satisfied. And it is the responsibility of the deductor to pay the same amount to the government within the prescribed time limits. So it is not on the person who is receiving the income. So let's take a simple example. If I am an employee of an MS University of Baroda and I'm drawing a salary, salary is an expense for the MS University of Baroda, but the MS University is making the payment. So the person who is making the payment, they have to deduct the TDS if the TDS provisions are applicable to that person. So the TDS provision is applicable to MS University of Baroda. So if the MS University is paying salary to me, then they have to deduct the TDS from salary payments if few conditions are satisfied. Same way, if the MS University of Baroda gives a construction contract to someone and they are making the payment, and if that construction contract is subject to TDS provisions, which is applicable to MS University of Baroda, then the MS University of Baroda has to deduct the TDS before making the payments. And after deducting the TDS amount, they have to deposit to the government within the prescribed time limits. So it is not on the person who is receiving the income. It is on the person who is making the payments. Then the person who is receiving the income, suppose the MS University is paying a salary of rupees 50,000 to me per month, and they are deducting the TDS from my salary of rupees 5,000. So obviously my salary is 50,000. MS University will record, sorry, MS University will record the salary expense of rupees 50,000, but he will make the payment to me only 45,000, and 5,000 they will deduct the TDS. Are you able to understand, dear student, this one? समझ में आ रहा है यहाँ तक?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So
sir.
okay.
Yes, sir.
So employer, okay, in our case, suppose take an example of ABC Limited. It is a company who is, making the payment of salary, right? Or they are making the payment for annual maintenance contract, either of the AC or computer system. Now try to understand, if they are paying the salary of rupees 50,000 and they are deducting the TDS of rupees 5,000, right? And AMC, they are making the payment of 1.5 lakh. And from that, they are deducting the TDS of 3,000 rupees. Hypothetically, this is the amount. So the payments to party, the payments to party is 45,000. And here it is 1,47,000 because they have deducted the TDS. 50,000 minus 5,000, 45,000. But this amount, the ABC Limited cannot keep with themselves. They have to pay to the government. So pay to government. So that 5,000 will be paid to the government. And here it is, the 3,000 will be paid to the government. So this will be an expense. This both will be the expense, will be recorded as an expense in the books of accounts of ABC Limited. Whereas when they pay this, there is a due date. It should be paid within due date. Right? If it is not paid within due dates, interest will be levied. Interest will be levied on this. Interest is quite a high amount, right? It is, 1.5% per month or part thereof. So it's not that easy, right? So the SSC has to comply with all this. And it is mandatory to deduct the TDS if the TDS is provision is applicable to ABC Limited. And there is no options. If the ABC Limited is paying a salary to his employee whose salary is 50,000, and that particular person says that please do not deduct the TDS because I instruct you, this is my money, then it is not a logical answer by the employee, and the ABC Limited is under a statutory obligation under the Income Tax Act to deduct the TDS. An employee cannot deny, and the ABC Limited has a right to deduct the TDS, and nobody can deny that because it is an Income Tax Act empowers all the person to deduct the tax. What will happen in the hands of the person who is receiving the money? Obviously, the payments to party is 45,000. It doesn't mean the employee can say that my income is 45. No, the income is 50,000 rupees. Same way, the person to whom this AMC contract has been given, the person who is receiving this money after the tax deductions, that particular both the party has to show as an income of the gross amount. They have to show the income as a gross amount, and whatever the taxes they have paid, uh, the taxes which is deducted by from the person who has made the payment, when that ABC Limited who has deducted the TDS will pay to the government, at that moment of time he has to mention the PAN of the party, payment account number. So it is a responsibility of the person whose TDS has been deducted. तो यहाँ पे ABC Limited के केस में जो एम्प्लॉई होगा जिसकी सैलरी में से TDS कटा है, it is the responsibility of the employee to furnish his or her PAN to ABC Limited. And ABC Limited, after making the payment of TDS on a due date or within a due date, there will be a TDS return. There will be a TDS return. TDS रिटर्न फाइल होगा और TDS रिटर्न के अंदर ये बताया जाएगा, ABC लिमिटेड विल से कि हमने ये जो 5,000 रुपीज TDS काटा है वो उसका पान नंबर क्या है. सेम वे ये 3,000 रुपीज है, जो भी पार्टी को AMC का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है उसका पान नंबर क्या है. इसी तरीके से जितने भी TDS काटे हैं उन सब के पान नंबर के सामने वो बोलेगा कि इस पान का इतना TDS काटा है, इस पान का इतना TDS काटा है, एंड दैट the return should be furnished again within a due date. Once that return is furnished and against which the PAN is mentioned, the party to whom the net payment is made, whatever the amount of TDS is deducted, when the person who has deducted the TDS, the deductor, file the TDS return and show the PAN number, this amount of TDS which is deducted will reflect into the accounts of the party. तो जो अकाउंट जो जिस पार्टी का TDS कटा है उसके अकाउंट में वो दिखाई देने लगेगा. And he can claim that his tax is already paid up to that extent. उसका जितना भी TDS कटा है उतने तक that particular person says that my TDS has been deducted, so my tax has been paid up to that extent. And if further amount of tax he has to pay, he has to further pay at the time of filing the return of income. Are you able to understand, dear students, this basic understanding?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is you need to understand how the TDS entire mechanism works. Whenever the person is making the payment, if the TDS provisions are applicable to them, they will deduct the TDS. Once they deduct the TDS, means before deducting the TDS, they have to identify whatever the payments they are making, whether it is subject to TDS or not. So if it is subject to TDS, they have to deduct the TDS. Once they deduct the TDS, they have to pay the TDS within a due date. And once it is done within a due date, every quarter they have to file the TDS return with the correct information. And once the TDS return has been filed, the person who has deducted the TDS has to issue a certificate of tax deduction, which can be downloaded from the website of the income tax. This TDS return is completely online. So it is furnished electronically. And once the TDS return is filed, you have to also issue the TDS certificate. And once you issue the TDS certificate, the particular transaction under which the TDS has been deducted is duly complied with the taxation law. So this is what is the basic. So this is the entire scheme. The one example is given over here. The objective is that कि अगर पूरे साल तक वेट किया जाएगा और उसके बाद टैक्स कलेक्ट किया जाएगा तो गवर्नमेंट के पास पैसा नहीं पहुंचेगा. सो इसीलिए गवर्नमेंट टीडीएस के प्रोविजंस लेके आए कि जब भी पेमेंट होगा उसमें से जो भी अमाउंट टीडीएस काटना है वो ऑन अ अप्रोक्सीमेशन बेसिस. It is not an exact tax liability. It is an approximation basis. Deduct the certain amount of tax and deposit to the government. And there are rules of it. So if it is not paid within due date, the interest will be levied. The return is not filed within the due date, the penalty will be levied. So all that will be included in your syllabus. So what are the payments covered by this scheme? The TDS scheme covers the payments like salary to resident or non-resident, payments other than salary to resident, namely interest payment. If any person is making the interest, it is subject to TDS. If they are making the payment of rent, subject to TDS. Commission or brokerage, subject to TDS. Winning of lotteries, winning of lotteries or winning of races, technical and professional fees, royalties, compensation, etc., etc. There are uh, number of payments are there which is subject to TDS, and the payments to non-residents, foreign companies. And so these are what is included over here. The TDS rate during the financial year 21-22. आपके पास जो मटेरियल है वो लेटेस्ट है, ये मटेरियल थोड़ा पुराना है, नया सॉफ्ट कॉपी अभी तक मेरे पास नहीं आया है. So but in your material it is 21, 20, 22, 23 होगा. So don't worry, we are going to discuss that, right? So the TDS rates during the financial year 21-22. This is to be very important from examination point of view and to understand. The normal TDS rate are summarized in Appendix 1 para, but that is not given to you. If the recipient does not furnish his or her or its PAN to the deductor, the tax will be deducted by virtue of section 206AA at a normal rate or at the rate of 20%, whichever is higher. So in our example, if ABC Limited would like to deduct the TDS of AMC Limited, right, or of salary 50,000 rupees, but that particular person does not deduct, does not furnish the PAN. ये एम्प्लॉय अपना पान नहीं देता है और एएमसी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट वाला अपना पान फर्निश नहीं करता है, देन जो भी रेट एप्लीकेबल है एएमसी में सेक्शन 194C कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एप्लीकेबल है, जहां पे रेट ऑफ टैक्स है 1% और 2%. 1% for individuals or HUF, and other than individuals and HUF it is 2%. In salary it is actually applicable at the flat applicable the rate to the individual को जो rate applicable है उस हिसाब से TDS काटना है. तो वो और 20% इसका, whichever is higher, that what the amount of TDS is required to be deducted. AMC कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है तो यहाँ पे 2% के हिसाब से मैंने लगाया है, लेकिन अगर वो अपना पान फर्निश नहीं करता है, you have to deduct at the rate of 20%. So not at 2%, but in 2.20%. So instead of deducting 3,000, you have to deduct the 30,000. So there is a, you know, huge TDS if the if the persons of whom the TDS has been deducted fail to furnish his PAN to the deductor. So that's what you have to remember. The PAN of the deductee should be mentioned in any correspondence and document which is exchanged between the deductor and deductee. Moreover, where any person located in a notified jurisdictional area is entitled to receive any sum on which the tax is deductible under any provisions of the Act, the payer will deduct the tax at the rate in force or the rate specified in the relevant provisions of the Act, or at the rate of 30% surcharge and education says cannot be added, whichever is higher. So if a particular person is, residing a notified jurisdictional area, then the tax is deducted at this rate. That is what is very, very important. आ रहा है बच्चों यहां तक समझ में?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So दूसरी बात मैं बाद में करूंगा. What are the other sections under which the tax is deducted? So when and how the tax is to be deducted at source from salary. Salary में से कब TDS कटता है उसके provisions हम पढ़ेंगे. Then when and how the tax to be deducted at source from the withdrawal of the employees provident fund scheme. So if there are certain funds which is lying in the provident fund and the employees withdrawing from that fund, then it is subject to TDS if certain conditions are satisfied. Even in case of salary, the person who is receiving the salary and the person who is making the payment of salary may deduct the TDS if the conditions mentioned in this section is satisfied. Section 192, then section 192A, then when and how the tax is deducted at source from interest on security. So if a person is making a payment of interest on security, and if the condition mentioned under this section is satisfied, the person making the payment of interest on security is required to deduct the TDS. From dividend, if any company is declaring a dividend and the condition which is mentioned under this section is satisfied, the company has to deduct the TDS on the payment of dividend. Same way, when and how the tax is to be deducted at source from the interest other than interest on securities. So interest, earlier it was interest on security, then section 193 is applicable. But if it is other than interest, but other than interest on security, so it is not interest on security, but it is other than interest on security, then section 194A will be applicable. And if the condition mentioned under section 194A is satisfied, the person is making the payment of interest other than interest on security is subject to TDS and they have to deduct the TDS. Then winning from lottery, crossword puzzles, or winning from horse races, section 194 B or section 194 BB. In both the, if few conditions are satisfied, then only the TDS is required to be deducted. If the conditions are not satisfied, which is given under both the sections, then there is no need to deduct the TDS. Same way the payment to contractors and subcontractors, then payment from insurance commission. If a particular person, generally it is the insurance companies. So insurance companies paying insurance commission to their agents for selling the insurance policies. It is subject to TDS if the condition mentioned under this section is satisfied. Same with the payment of life insurance policy. If the insurance company is making a payment of the life insurance policy, and it is, if the condition mentioned under this section is satisfied, the insurance company, while making the payment of a life insurance policy amount, they have to deduct the TDS. Same way, payments to non-resident sports person or sports associations. So if any particular sports person or sports man or sports association is operating in India, and if the payment is made to them, and if the few conditions are satisfied, then it is subject to TDS. Then payment in respect of national saving schemes. So in that, if these conditions are satisfied, it is subject to TDS. Then payment on account of repurchase of units of mutual funds. If mutual fund purchase its own shares, and if the few conditions are satisfied, then it is subject to TDS. Then from commission on sale of lottery tickets. Earlier it was an insurance commission, that is under section 194 H. Where is the insurance commission? 194D, right? Yeah. Insurance commission है तो 194D. But if it is commission on sale of lottery ticket, then section 194J is applicable. And you need to understand whatever the conditions is given under section 194J, if it is satisfied, it is subject to TDS. Then commission and brokerage, so which is not an insurance commission or which is not a commission on sale of lottery tickets, other than all that will be covered by section 194H, and whatever the condition is mentioned under section 194H, if it is satisfied, it is subject to TDS. Then payment of rent. So if a person is making the payment of rent and the condition which is mentioned under this section 194I is satisfied, it is subject to TDS. Then these are very unique sections, right? The earlier sections are different, and there are 3 unique sections under the Income Tax Act. Say one of it is section 194IA, 194IB, and 194M. These are the 3 important sections. When and how the tax is deductible from the payment on transfer of certain immovable properties. So if a particular person is making a payment to the builder for the purchase of immovable property, and if the condition mentioned under this section is satisfied, they have to deduct the TDS under section 194 IA. 198RB, if a particular person is making a payment and of rent, right? So if there is a payment of rent by certain individuals or HUF, then the TDS is required to be deducted if few conditions satisfied, which is mentioned under section 194IB. Then, the tax is to be deducted from the payment under the joint development agreement under section 194IC. Same way for if a particular person is making the payment for professional fees or technical fees, it is subject to TDS under section 194G, 194J, if certain conditions which is mentioned is fulfilled. Then, section 194K in respect of income from units. Then LA is a big, sections. Section 194L, then there are a number of LA, then, LB, LBA, right? And a lot of sections are there. So it is payment of compensation on acquisition of certain immovable property. If someone compulsorily acquires the immovable property, and because of compulsory acquisition, they are making the payment of compensation, it may be subject to TDS if certain conditions are satisfied. Then interest payable on infrastructure debt fund. There is a section 194 LB, separate deduction. separate deduction for TDS. Then, a source of income from the units of business trust, the payment in respect of units of investment funds, then income in respect of investment in securitization fund, interest to non-resident or foreign entities, then interest on bonds or government securities under section 194 LD. Right? And this is section 194M is important to understand. So when and how the tax is deductible on certain payments by individuals and HUF. Then if any payment is made In case section 194N is also applicable if few conditions are satisfied. Then, the tax is deductible in respect of payment by the e-commerce operator to e-commerce participation, section 194M. So if any person is selling the goods through Amazon, Flipkart, or any online mode, and they are registered, so e-commerce operator, then it is subject to TDS. Income from other sums, section 195, that generally talks about the non-resident. So if any payment is done to the non-resident, generally it is covered by section 195. So, there are number of sections under which the TDS is required to be deducted. The list is very, very high. We are not going to discuss everything. Some of the sections we will take into consideration, but I'm just taking all the payments which is given in the material, so that you are aware of that there are TDS provision under this kind of payment are there, and you should be aware of it. Right? Any payment to non-resident unit holder, then tax is deductible from the units or long-term capital gain under section 196B, 196C, that global depository receipts or AGR, or right, so capital gain on it. Then foreign institutional investors from security. So these all are the sections under which the TDS is required to be deducted. So if whatever the payments, if it is covered under any of these sections, then the next step will start. Okay, whatever the condition mentioned under it, whether it is satisfied or not. If it does not satisfy, you are not required to deduct the TDS. But if any of the condition is satisfied, the person who is making the payment has to deduct the TDS. So we are going to learn the provisions of the different sections and understand that if it is required to be deducted, how much it's to be deducted and how to deal with it. So, these are the other points for considerations. Then this is the time limit. The time of deposit of tax deducted at source or collected at source. So this is very, very important that if you have material in your hands, uh, you know, ensure that you tick this, because this could be one of the questions to write in examinations. What is the due dates for depositing of the tax? So to understand better, let me give you one simple example. So let it keep it. We continue with the same. That is ABC Limited. Now try to understand. Is making, there are 5 employees. 5 employees और पांचों का 5 employees and पांचों का TDS कट रहा है. सपोज के पांचों का 25,000 TDS कट रहा है, एक का 5,000 ईच. तो 5 का कट रहा है, 25,000 का TDS कट रहा है पर मंथ. Same way, ABC Limited is making the payment of rent. Every month, suppose they are paying the rent of 40,000 of a building. So it is subject to TDS. So उसके अंदर 10% पे TDS कट रहा है 40,000. यहाँ पे 5,000 कट रहा है, लेकिन 5,000 इंटू, क्योंकि 5 एम्प्लॉई है, हर एक का 5,000 कट रहा है, so 25,000. And this is every month. For simple understanding, I am just taking only the 2 payments, but it can be any number of payments. All of you know that how many months are there? So April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February and March. Generally, these are the, the 12 months. What the income tax rule says that in a particular month, whatever the payment you have made on with the TDS is required to be deducted. So we hypothetically right now believes that in every month from salary, the TDS is 25,000 and from rent it is 4,000. So every month in a month of April, total 25,000 plus 4,000 has been deducted. So every month 29,000 will be deducted. Right? So this is what is the tax will be deducted. Oh. Now, what is the due date? This after deducting of the TDS, it must be paid to the government. So this table talks about that. Let's understand. The deposit of tax of the tax deducted at source or collected at source, the tax deducted or collected by the person shall deposit to the government on account as follow. So these are different situations, and this is the time of deposit of TDS and TCS. Currently, we are talking about the TDS means tax deducted at source. So this column is more important. But whatever is applicable to TDS, the same is applicable to TCS. It is the tax deducted at source, and this is tax collected at source. So both we will understand, but first we will focus on TDS. So what is the different situation? The tax is deducted or collected by an office of government, and the tax is paid without the production of a income tax challan. So income tax na challan ni jarur nathi, directly it is deducted or collected the office of the government. Government की office ही काट रही, तो खुद को payment नहीं करेगी, or they are not paying by the challans. So the time of deposit of the TDS on the same day on which the tax is deducted. जिस दिन पे टैक्स कटा उसी दिन के अंदर सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को पेड कर देना है. There is no time limit is given. वैसे भी गवर्नमेंट ही काट रही है और अपने पास ही रखने वाली है. So in the same day. Situation number 2. The tax is deducted or collected by an office of the government, and the tax is accompanied by an income tax challan. The challan number is ITNS 281. So whoever is deducting the TDS, if they are paying to the income tax department through this challan, then on or before the 7th day from the end of the month in which the tax is deducted. तो जिस महीने में टीडीएस काटा है उस महीने को छोड़ के नेक्स्ट महीने की 7 तारीख तक you have to deposit with the bank. Alright, so in our example, we are deducting the TDS on each month. That is the fixed amount of 29,000, which consists of 25,000 for salary and 4,000 for rent. So as it is deducted in the month of April, and if I want to pay the challan of 289, then I have to pay within the 7 days from the end of the month in which the TDS is deducted. So TDS कटा है अप्रैल महीने में, तो उस महीने को छोड़ के 7 दिन, तो 7th of May. अगर मई महीने का TDS मैंने काटा है, so मई महीने को छोड़ के 7th of the next month. So मई के बाद जून, 7th of June. तो जून का है उसी तरीके से 7th of July. This is what up to go. So in March में आएगा, February में आओगे, so 7th of March. Financial year could be anyone. समझ में आ रहा है बच्चों यहाँ तक?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So on or before the 7 days आपको डिपॉजिट करना पड़ेगा. TCS में भी वही है. तो TCS में बताऊंगा बाद में, लेकिन दोनों में सेम है. तो ये गवर्नमेंट के बारे में थे जहां पे वो चलन को यूज नहीं कर रहे हैं पहले सिचुएशन में। दूसरे में अगर चलन यूज नहीं कर रहे हैं सेम डे पे, जिस दिन टीडीएस काटा उसी दिन। सो अगर ये 25,000 रुपीज 30 अप्रैल को कटे हैं, देन 30 अप्रैल को ही पेड कर देना पड़ेगा। और ये रेंट का पेमेंट अगर 25 है ना 25 अप्रैल को किया है, तो 25 अप्रैल को ही गवर्नमेंट को पेड कर देना पड़ेगा 4,000 रुपीज टीडीएस। इफ दे आर नॉट, है ना, पे थ्रू द चलन, अगर चलन से भरना पड़ता है तो फिर वो महीने के बाद आपको 7 दिन मिल जाएंगे। सो इट इज ऑलवेज एडवाइजेबल टू टेक दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी। What is the third situation? The tax is deducted or collected by a person, not यहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट था और ऑफिस ऑफ गवर्नमेंट थी, बट नाउ एनीवन नॉट बीइंग एन ऑफिस ऑफ गवर्नमेंट, गवर्नमेंट की ऑफिस नहीं है। Then where the income or amount is paid or credited in the month of March, tax should be deposited by 30th April. So अगर अदर देन गवर्नमेंट है, अगर वो चलन से पेड करना चाहते हैं तो फर्स्ट 11 months it is same 7th of the next month. But as far as the last month is concerned, it give you not the 7 days but 30 days. So 30th April is the last date for the month of March. Last month of the financial year has been given an extended period of time for the payment of deposit of tax. Otherwise, it is 7th of the next month. So मैं यहाँ पे हर एक महीने की लिख लेता हूँ। जुलाई है तो अगस्त, अगस्त है तो सितंबर, अक्टूबर है तो अक्टूबर, नवंबर, दिसंबर, जनवरी, 7th Feb, right? और यहाँ पे 7th of March, और लास्ट महीने में it is 30th April. That is what is the due date, right? Where the income or the amount is paid or credited before March 1, means up to 28th of February. The tax should be deposited within 7 days from the end of the month in which the tax is deducted. तो फिर वो 7 महीने में 7 दिन के अंदर, सॉरी नॉट 7 महीने बट 7 दिन के अंदर उसका पेमेंट होना चाहिए, एक्सेप्ट लास्ट मंथ, बिकॉज इट इज द क्लोजिंग मंथ। इसीलिए अगर कुछ आगे का भी रह गया होगा तो मार्च महीने में एडजस्टमेंट करना पड़ता है, तो 7 दिन सफिशिएंट नहीं रहेंगे, इसलिए 30 डेज दिए जाते हैं। सो 30 डेज है। Then the tax is deducted by a person not being an office of the government, and the assessing officer with the prior approval of the joint commissioner has permitted the quarterly deposit of tax deducted under section 192, 194A, 194D and 194H only in these 4 sections. Instead of paying monthly TDS, if a particular person who is deducting the TDS only under section 192, 194A, means 192 is about payment of salary. Section 194A is interest other than interest on security. 194D insurance commission and 194H commission or brokerage. अगर ये 4 ही section applicable है, then the assessor has the right to go to the assistant, go to the assessing officer, request them instead of filing monthly, he will deposit the tax quarterly. So in that, for the quarter ending June, 1st June, 7 days वहां से, so 7th of July. So in our case, this is the first quarter. This is the first quarter. This is all are the quarter. This is second quarter. Right? This is third quarter. Right? And this is, sorry, So this is what the each quarter is, right? So इतने क्वार्टर है. So जहां पे क्वार्टर फर्स्ट 3 क्वार्टर्स है, this is first quarter, second quarter and third quarter. 7 days will be given. So ये जून में खत्म हुआ 7th of July. सितंबर में खत्म होगा तो 7th of October. ये दिसंबर में खत्म होगा तो 7th of January. और लास्ट क्वार्टर है, so 7 days is not appropriate, so it will be 30 days. So it will be 30 days. If it is monthly, next month's 7th of the next month will be the due date. And for last month, it is the 30 days. The year gets over, or the month in which the TDS is deducted. क्वार्टरली है तो जहां पे पहले 3 क्वार्टर में जहां पे अकाउंट खत्म होता है उसके 7 दिन के अंदर टैक्स डिपॉजिट कर देना है. बच्चों समझ में आ रहा है यहां तक?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the point number 5, 6 or 7 are unique section, as I told you. The tax is deducted as source by a person under section 194IA. Tax is deducted by a person under section 194IB, and tax is deducted by a person under section 194M. So that is the different sections under which because it is not only the challan but it is also the return. So here this challan ITNS 281, let me show you that. Right. So you can go to this website. This is, you know, the tax payment system. Hopefully it will work. So, you know, this is the website of income tax, NSDL and other, the tax information network. Here it is the challan number 281. So those who, the ABC Limited, the responsible person of ABC Limited will, you know, go to this. और ये जो 25,000 का TDS है जो 5 एम्प्लॉई का उसका 25,000 का चलन है, he can pay through this website. यहाँ पे जाना है और यहाँ से प्रोसीड करना है, राइट? सो यू नो NSDL की वेबसाइट पे है, दिस इज NSDL, राइट? सो यहाँ पे जाके आप टैक्स का पेमेंट कर सकते हो ऑनलाइन. ये चलन की सारी डिटेल भरनी पड़ेगी, ये सारी डिटेल आपको भरनी पड़ेगी और देयर आर स्टेप्स ऑफ पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्स, और फिर आपका चलन जनरेट हो जाएगा. वो चलन जनरेट हो जाएगा मींस आपने TDS अभी तक भरा है, उतना ही हुआ. ये भरने के बाद जो भी आपकी ड्यू डेट है उस हिसाब से आपको भर देना है और फिर आपको TDS रिटर्न भरने हैं. सो क्वार्टरली स्टेटमेंट, if it is for salary it is to be treated as 24Q. If it is other than salary it is 26Q. If you are making a payment to non-resident, you have to separately file a return for the payment to the non-resident, 27Q, right? And then 194IA, 198B, that we'll discuss tomorrow. So again, whatever this TDS statements are there, which is applicable to the persons, it is to be filed within the due date. So due date of furnishing the return of income. So first, the due date of payment of tax, first deduct the tax, deposit the tax within the due date of this, which we have learned. After that, once the quarter gets over, you have to file the quarterly TDS return, which is applicable to you. And that is again within the due date. And once you do that, you have to issue a certificate. All this is mandatory under the law. And that's what we are all going to learn tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Is it clear, dear students? समझ में आ रहा है?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So I am closing the session today now up to this. I hope that all of you have the material in your hands. So, and if you keep the material with yourself, it would be better to understand.